I would like to discuss about the reptilians. The reptilians are drawn to individuals that possess spiritual power. And African Americans are targeted by the reptilian group because there is great spiritual power within the bloodline of all African Americans. And this is something even Hitler understood, and why the Jews were attacked. Because the Jews are also a part of a very powerful bloodline that connects to ancient Egypt, Africa, right? So when we're looking at the vaccines that are being presented to U.S. citizens, a lot of these vaccines, they target African American and Native Americans, right? And in Hawaii, there is complete removal of this vaccine agenda due to history of the native community being attacked, right, by these vaccines. And the reptilians are associated with the stripping of spiritual power, right? The sort of downfall of the human beings. Now, the spiritual power can be stripped from children, right? Because children possess a great power, right? A great innocence, right? Where there's innocence, there's great power, right? And you know, the groups that support this type of stripping of power from African American, Native American, from children, it's basically the same thing. There's a quality of life from children and from Native Americans, from African Americans, the spirit that is basically the stripping of. So with African Americans, you know, the reptilians work with these low frequencies, right? These low frequencies that have a lot to do with the sex, right? So that can be with perversion, pornography, and this is not just a group, right? This is sort of targeting all kinds of people, right? Not in a gender or in a race. So, you know, the perversion, the pornography has a lot to do with these lower frequencies, right? That are basically creating chaos, right? So low self-worth, it's the stripping of the spiritual power, right? And particularly in this ancient world, we call the era of the queens, right, in Africa, right, before we think of ancient Egypt with the pharaohs, right, the age of the queens, the African American, African, the height of their civilization had queens, had women who were leaders, right? Possessing traits such as Hatshepsut, right? Able to represent the balance between both masculine and feminine, right? And this was a practice that would be performed for many, many generations, and that's why the era of queens, right, which wasn't an era, it was a long-standing African civilization, basically, that would bleed into ancient Egypt in the sort of transition from the Atlantean period into the patriarchal period that we know today in our history textbooks, right? So, you know, the black woman is in this time was possessing a leadership that in many ways has been broken down, has been stripped, right? So black women throughout this patriarchal experiment, which basically is the white man, sort of rising into to power, right, and the stripping of the, African power, right, ancient Egypt, the kind of bringing that down, and then you see the rise of an entirely, this sort of dominating force of white men, right, which we know today. So the reptilians can work a lot with stripping of the spiritual power from human beings. So when we think of Jews, Jews, we're going back to the Moses, right? We're going back to Moses. We're going back to the liberators, right? The Jews, there's a liberator, there's a liberation within the bloodline of the Jews that very ancient, goes way far back when it comes to these people have liberated not only Africa, the Middle East, we're thinking of even ancient Egypt. They're considered the liberators to the reptilians, right? So, of course, removing of the spirit, right? Or, trying to, there's a sort of spiritual power in the spirit, right? So when, we talk about the reptilians work with a lot of the negative karma, right, of this planet. And the negative karma has a lot to do with lack of control, no control, right, over yourself. So there's a lot of the lower chakras, with the lower chakras, the sort of attack on the lower chakras has a lot to do with our sort of animal self, right? There's the whole functioning in the animal self, right, which is the stripping of love, the stripping of innocence, and then just leaving you feeling really bound to sort of these negative karmas, right? Where you no longer recognize God is within yourself, right? And then you start to really get into the whole shaming and the judgment and feelings not being good enough, and you sort of attack within yourself God and me are one, right? That universal cosmic vibration that governs everything when it comes to manifestation and when it comes to death and rebirth, right? So reptilians, they support a lower frequency on this planet, one that again strips the spiritual power and sort of prevents the raising of the consciousness, right? Because when the raising of the consciousness happens, particularly in Native Americans, African Americans, even when we're thinking of the Jews, is a great example of the type of direct removal. As well as all these groups, there's been a seeming of a direct removal. Literally with the Trail of Tears, it was an act of removal act to remove these people, right? And there's been all of this type of removal in order to really strip the spirit from the Native Americans, the Africans, the Jews, stripping the spirit, because when you strip the spirit of momentum of multiple generations, it's not easy. And when you have multiple generations who have the spirit, right, with the Native Americans, the spirit of the elders, the spirit of the ancestors, the spirit of the land, and you're really connected to it for multiple generations, there's a lot of power in that, right? And the reptilians have a lot to do with the sort of aggression, that sort of competitiveness, and also this deconstruction, of love, right? So, we can call this spiritual text, we can call this chaos and mayhem and, destruction. But, the prevailing force on this planet is, light. It is love. That's the prevailing force, right? And everything will always go back to love, right? So we must remember that. But, as all the archangels understood, is that, the angel is also the warrior, right? And that's why these, these bloodlines, the Jews, Africans, the even Middle Easterns, these natives, there's a strong sort of spirit within these people, because it's not just 1-2 generation. There's many generations of the spirit and living with the spirit, right? Because when the reptilians, the spirit is very much gone, right, in many ways. So what that shows up is jealousy envy, competition, lust, materialism, aggression, right, towards oneself and towards other people, desperation, scarcity consciousness, poverty consciousness, and and that kind of karma, right? The karma, that cause and effect, that keeps us in a state where the spirit cannot grow, right? Where the spirit cannot really raise this consciousness within us, right? So, there, the two types of group, the light and the dark, right? And we know that, and we face that battle as Shiva, and all archangels have faced that, even Mother Mary, right? Even Mary Magdalene, even Jesus Christ had to face that, right? But the reason why, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, also a part of a very strong sort of spirit lineage, right? Through just, you could say, their bloodline, or they were able to really remain true to the love, to the innocence with themselves, and to the spirit within themselves, which is basically translated as power within this cosmic world, right? And the spirit is how Nikola Tesla receives his ideas. It's how Einstein received his ideas. It's how Da Vinci received his vision. It's the spirit, right? We can call that consciousness, as the natives would call it conscious. Spirit is basically consciousness. Even the Africans with the drumming, it's spirit consciousness, right? Even with the Middle Easterns, and when we're thinking of their ancient old practices of bowing, right? Or of their sort of mantra recitation, their sort of chanting, it's spirit, it's consciousness. So when we have that, and we have that thoroughly, like, basically embedded within our DNA, the spirit is very alive in us, right? So people who have no spirit, even Yogi Bhajan has said that there's people who you could say lost the spirit. They would go to him and basically willing to pay millions of dollars for Yogi Bhajan to clear their karma, right? Because that's how much they wanted to the spirit. And everybody can restore the spirit, and that's why we're still surviving on this planet through the Dark Age, and the Native Americans and the Africans, and even the Jews, when who have been targeted for removal, right, by this reptilian group, is because of the spirit and the ability to remain close to the spirit, right? And to really amplify that out, and to really embody that spirit. And that's how these beings become warriors, is through embodying that spirit. It could be mantra recitation, it could be chanting, it could be yoga, it could be something creative that you do that makes you feel very whole and united with the original principles of the universe, which is love, and to clear out these karmic ties that have us recycling back to earth just aimlessly, just doing the same thing, right? And that's kind of a reptilian type of experience, right? Just the sex and just the money, and then just keep doing that, and distracted from the real goal of the human experience, which is ascension. It's about the raising of the kundalini. That's the real goal. That's the goal that connects us to the universe. The sex money type of karma dilemma and all that kind of is kind of an entrapment on this earth, right? So we through the spirit is how we're able to travel through the tree of life. It's through the spirit we're able to travel through the tree of life, and we're able to reach higher levels of vibration, and then ground that vibration in the physical, and begin to manifest a reality that is creative, right? And as long as we're playing that karma thing, the sex and money, and feeling very depressed in that, the spirit dwells and the spirit dulls, right? And when the spirit dwells and the spirit dulls, we don't have that emotional fulfillment. We feel this sort of rift with love, or this sort of hate towards love, or anger towards love, that we don't have enough relaxation, enough ease, enough peace in our life to actually let the spirit come to us, and let the spirit rise, and allow that creativity to flourish within ourselves. So the Renaissance is the age of light, right? And the Renaissance shows up in many different forms, right? And for the Renaissance, it can be a dance, right? And there's so many dances on this planet from all different geographic regions that basically represent a Renaissance, right? And the Renaissance basically represents the tree of life, right? From the soil, you travel up, right? The spine, right, of the tree, the trunk, and then you get into the branches, which receives the light, right? And this is what we're entering into on this planet Earth. However, this reptilian is just there's so many. I mean, that's just, we're talking about the dark, the dark side of matter, right? There's a light, there's a dark side of matter, right? There's light, there's dark, right? That's just how it is. And how we can become aware of this so we're not so entranced by it and influenced by it and completely distracted by it, and so that we can begin to really focus on that neutral state within ourselves as human beings, which is this we call that neutral state, which is the warrior, right? Is that things are going to come at you from light and love, and from this other polarity, right? This dark and hate and stuff. But the neutral state, the warrior state, the heartfelt state, the spirit state, is to basically work your creativity into all of that in any way that you possibly can. Is to work your creativity in any way. And that could just be educating yourself on a subject, that could be meditating, that could be yoga, that could be painting, that could be watching a documentary on something that really opens up your mind and helps you to just become more articulate in the way that you express yourself, right? To really articulate the spirit within you, right? The spirit of your lineage, the spirit of your elders and ancestors, the spirit of this land, the spirit of the ancient past, the remote future, right? And get educated in what it means to be in the spirit. Because the more educated you are in the spirit, right? We call esoterics, you call in the spirit, Native Americans, the Africans have a great spirit, right? The Jews, I mean, just, a few groups of many groups that have spirit, right? Even, white people, there's the spirit within that, right? But just educate yourself on the spirit, and that could be the spirit of space. Like, you don't need to be spiritual. You could just be into astronomy, right? Or like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? You're an astronomer, or you could be like Carl Sagan, right? Also an astronomer, somebody who's more scientific, but yet completely educated in that spirit that moves through them, that tree of life that helps them to raise their consciousness into the stars and into their philosophy and their soulfulness. And that could be through music, that could be through art, that simply could be through reading other people's work of art, other people's scientific discoveries. It can also be just through watching documentaries on people who are sharing their spirit and sharing their creativity and sharing how they were able to, use their creativity to help them overcome the darkness, right? And just educating on your spirit is the best thing you can do to neutralize your state and to become heartfelt. And that's the thing, the reptilian, they present all of these distractions in the way, this, hot sex, porn stuff, perversion, go for that, right? There's all these kinds of tests, that we're presented with, that there's a sense of karma with that gives a sense of depression, right? Because in the way it creates this dwelling or this dulling of the spirit, and it makes us not want to be alive, right? But we're here to be alive, to unite with the spirit, and not just, I mean, we're already the spirit, but is actually to embody the spirit in the physical, in the flesh, right? And the reptilians, in many ways, it's like when you connect with it's like very much just flesh that is completely like controlled by these underworld type of beings that have a lot of karma that, that will take lifetimes for them to really flush out of the system, right? So when we look at Yogi Bhajan and his sort of his Kundalini yoga that he was doing for many, many years, I mean, he was flushing out so much karma on behalf of this planet. And that he basically, his body started, it was just so much karma. He started to literally get illness because of all of the karma that he was flushing out of this collective planet, right? For all of the people that were participating and within his own aura, right? Because Yogi Bhajan, being connected to a bloodline again that has that spirit, right, through thousands of years of that, right? So he was basically connecting with that tree of life in like a forest fire, burning out. But he in many ways caused that illness within himself because of that great spirit that he was so dedicated to, and it was his great treasure in this life, right? So, the burning of the karma, right? Whatever that is, the karma that we all experience, these these, we call these reptilians, these cause and effect, where, we feel depressed, the spirit is dulling, the spirit is dwelling, we feel, very earthbound in a way that we feel very disconnected from our liberation, from the education of the spirit, right? We don't really feel educated in our spirit, right? A way on how we really heal, lifetimes of these depressions that these reptilians connected to, is through educating yourself in the spirit. So you're seeing a lot of people on this planet, in all different geographic regions, ethnicity, nationality, race, gender, sex, age, I mean, really all kinds of people. We're educating them on the spirit, and that could be the spirit of their own mind, like meditating satanama. It could be the spirit of their own spine, surfing, dancing, moving their spine. It could be connecting with horses, having a horse rescue, an animal rescue, participating in these type of things, is educating themselves on the spirit. And that's how we're able to transform our karma into the dharma, right? Because when we're just in the sex and money, we can feel very dull in that, right? Because in the tree system, when we start to raise the consciousness and really vibrate the spirit and feel vibrant in the spirit, it's the movement towards our dharma that is the kind of completion of our soul, and the sort of ascension where we're traveling out of the tree system. We're not meant to be bound. In the Native Americans, the spirit is in everything. In the spirit of the Buddhist monks, the spirit of the Hindus, the spirit of the Tao, the spirit of Christianity. I mean, the spirit of the the Kabbalah, the spirit of the Quran. All these different sort of it's all in everything. The spirit is in everything, right? Brahman, the spirit is in everything, right? So that's what the sort of ascension represents, is that kind of ability to recognize your creative energy that is in everything and feel that connection to it, but also your ability to heal, right? So the spirit is in everything is really recognizing you can heal, right? You can heal and you can set yourself free from it. So with the Jews, the removal of them, and there's so much removal going on in not so distant past of all kinds of people, removing this, removing that, is because the spirit, they were thoroughly educated on the spirit, and they have many thousands of years of that, and they've proven themselves to themselves that they are warriors, right? Either it's escaping Egypt, either it's overcoming much war in Africa, or sort of battles that are going on, or the spirit is about, you've initiated yourself, you could say your bloodline into this ascension experience, right? Which has to do with, prosperity and creativity. It has to do with spiritual protection and spiritual knowledge that you don't just get, as a human being. Just, it's not handed to you, right? Even the Anunnaki, they didn't just hand it. It's something that you spirit. You had to grow the spirit. You had to raise the spirit in your body, and then that spirit would then, when you were ready, the spirit would give you these knowledge on like astronomy and cosmology and what that all means, and philosophy and soulfulness and art and music, right? So it's the spirit in many ways that gave us all of these type of, these renaissances, these ways, these pathways, these methodologies, these practices, these participations that, have given us the opportunity to travel through the tree of life and to, reach our destiny, right? And to develop the quality of life that is the warrior, that's able to be really educated on the spirit and continue to focus on the spirit regardless of what everybody else is doing, right? As Jesus has said, the path towards ascension, liberation is very narrow, right? While the path towards destruction is in many ways very wide, right? So it's almost like a hidden sort of truth, or a hidden road, a seeming narrow road that's, hidden in plain sight, right? And in the individuals that take this, you're walking towards the Renaissance, you're walking towards the Age of Light, you're walking towards you're walking towards unconditional love, which is the burning of your karma. So it's almost like as you're walking down the path, it feels like you're on fire. You're just sweating and you're shivering and you're shaking, because you have to let go. You have to let die the, this sex money type of attack and aggression. Like, you have to let die these ways in which we abandon love, or we deny it, or we reject it in each other, and we try to judge each other and create all these type of crusades against love, right? So I just wanted to share the subject on the reptilians and how we can best, navigate through this planet at this time with, its polarity. And if you're a sensitive being, such as a lot of generations, particularly younger generations, are becoming more sensitive and they're more aware of what's going on, and everything is being exposed. I mean, it's so obvious what's going on. Like, it's right in your face. Like, you don't even really need to research. You don't even really need to hunt. It's just kind of put in your face, right? For a reason, because in order for us to move forward into this age of light, into this future renaissance where we're going to be space travelers, right, is that we do have to have integrity, and we do have to get a control over, these type of these karmas, right? This sort of spirit and the sort of we have to build up the spirit on this planet, right? Within all groups of people, not just one, two, right? So, that's about the liberation. So everything's being exposed so that, what has been unjust for so many centuries, either it's Native Americans, African Americans, multiple women in all regions, it has been unjust, or what has been very imbalanced on this planet. It has to be corrected. And if it, Mother Gaia will correct it by exposing it, and exposing the karma, kind of letting it bleed, so that, you can really flush it out, flush it through, like the water flushing through a tree, right? So that you can purify. And that's what we call the Great Flood, is basically, Mother Gaia giving this opportunity to clean out, again, these periods of human experience where we're just so consumed by, these reptilian type of animal, hate myself type of thing. I'm just gonna, do whatever, in my war and in my, addiction and obsession with that, we gotta, many times the justice comes in like the Great Flood, like a great tidal wave, in the spirit sense, right? To really revive the spirit and to really awaken the spirit, which has to do with your heart, right? So a lot of people are experiencing the heart awakening, the burning, right? I'm burning, my heart is on fire, I'm burning, right, up inside, because that's the way of you using the fire of your heart to clear out the karma, right? You use the fire of your heart, the fire, right, of your heart to clear out the karma, right? And these karma basically are, what do you call, self-fulfilling prophecies, negative self-fulfilling prophecies that you have given into because you just didn't at the time, have enough education on spirit to actually make a new choice. So you made a choice based off of this negative self-fulfilling prophecy that is out there in the airwaves, and you got seduced into it because it triggered your childhood wounds. It triggered, maybe you come from poverty, or you trigger, if you're a black woman, black man, maybe it triggered your sense of being underprivileged, we'll say, right? So it will trigger these type of wounds, it will trigger these type of angers within you, the rage in you. But when we educate the spirit, it's like we're making a choice to clear out the negative self-fulfilling prophecies, right? But it's not easy. You have to walk through the fire of your heart, and you have to let your heart roar, and you have to really go through it with your spirit, right? And you really have to build up your spirit. That's the only way, right? As long as the spirit dwells in us, we'll never feel the spiritual protection. We'll never really feel comfortable or confident enough to actually move forward in the tree of life, and then we'll just hang out in this sort of sort of dwelling, and we'll just hide all our stuff. We'll be in the shadow our whole life, right? Hiding, and it's terrified and scared, right? Which is okay. We do that for a couple lifetimes. We hide in the cave, terrified, because we're haunted by whatever negative fulfilling prophecy. But then there comes a point when the spirit comes in, like the burning bush of God, right? The royal blue flaming bush of God, right? Where it's like this voice that comes to you, the spirit, that basically gives you a boost, gives you encouragement, inspiration to actually, like Shiva has faced, like Krishna has faced, this royal burning blue bush of God, this voice of reason that basically sort of awakens the spirit in you and gives you a sort of assignment. Hey, you are to initiate yourself further, right? Don't hang here. Initiate yourself further. Don't get caught up in the negative self-fulfilling prophecies. Hey, it's time to you have an assignment, or I'm giving you assignment. It could be simple as, and just educate yourself in the spirit. Forgive yourself. It can be just as simple as you can spend, as we do, spend lifetimes just forgiving ourselves, right? Or, your creativity, work on that. Could be assignment as changing jobs, changing locations, go to the beach, spend, 82 days at the beach. Literally, God will give you these assignments. Say, I want you to spend 180 days at the beach. Every day I want you to go, and I want you to go at the sunset, and I want you to collect a shell, right? I mean, this is what happened. The spirit of Native Americans have spoken this to them. Like, literally have said, give assignments to go and do these things, right? You are going to dance, for, 80 days or something like that, and that will liberate you, right? I mean, this is something that goes all across this planet, where people have been giving these assignments to do these things, and they've done them for lifetimes, or for generations, for thousands of years, it seems like, right? But it's the spirit. It's you're elevating the spirit. You're getting to know, you're educating yourself, right? So when humans are dwelling in this chaos, in this attack against love, or the karma, right, where they feel too poor, or too weak, or too sad, depressed, to move forward, they're given an assignment, right, which is their way of, we can call their way of healing, but also their way of freeing the spirit in them, and really beginning to work their way towards their ascension, which every human being, I mean, the goal, of all shamans on this planet is that. And that's why Yogi Bhajan gave his whole life force to just that. Every single human being having the opportunity, a kriya, a meditation of some sort that could fit anybody in anybody's karma, no matter how deep it is. It could fit anybody's karma, and it could help them to bring in the royal blue fire of their spirit, right? Of their spirit, of their soul. And they have a chance, opportunity to embody that if they're willing to go through it, like literally go through it, educate yourself on it, go through it, right? So I'm going to leave you guys with these thoughts, and thank you for joining me.